Alright, I'm gonna drop the background music a little bit. I'm gonna keep it on the lower side for now, since it's probably more important that you guys hear me talking versus music. I'm gonna leave it right here. And if we get people on stream, just let me know if you can hear the background music, if it's barely audible or if it's loud. And let me know if my mic is coming in clear. Like I said before, this particular setup is new. This is the sort of a test stream for the... Okay, well, as we sort of get going, I'm going to test out everything here. And I did have sort of an intro planned for the stream. And then I will sort of troubleshoot the issues on the fly, and then hopefully once I get a chance to edit the footage for the stream afterwards, if there's anything weird with the audio, I might be able to fix it in post, like I did for the debut stream. For this one, since this is the first type I've done since starting on YouTube here, I'll be editing the stream itself and kind of condensing it down a little bit. It'll probably go up as one big chunk of footage rather than splitting it into pieces. But to sort of kick things off, as you can see from the title, this is going to be a drawing stream, and I thought it would be an interesting way to kick off this particular type of content by doing a stream dedicated to concept art, and more specifically the concept art for Homeworlders. For those who might be tuning in for the first time, like I mentioned in the debut, I'm originally not from this particular planet. I've been here on Earth for a while, since 2001, but I'm originally from another planet called Homeworld. And this one thing I wanted to sort of explore a little bit in the concept drawing stream format here would be what Homeworlders look like, what my alien race actually looks like. And I figured the best way to do that would be to do some concept illustrations of a typical quote-unquote regular homeworld life form, and then talk a little bit about the different physical attributes and different parts of the anatomy. What I'll do whenever I do these drawing streams going forward, I'll put a note on the splash screen that you see here, on the overlay, that explains what we're focusing on for the drawing stream. And I have the title here on the layout that says Homeworld Anatomy. So before we get into the whole breakdown here, a couple pieces of housekeeping, since I know they tend to be frequently asked questions. The software that I'm using to draw, I use Clip Studio Paint Pro. I also use Photoshop, but primarily I do Photoshop for image editing and templates. For actual drawing on a canvas, I use Clip Studio. I've been using this particular program back since it was called Manga Studio, and it functions pretty well for what I need. What I primarily used for in the beginning was digital inking. To step back a little bit in the process, I'm traditionally a pencil on paper artist. When I started creating things a long time ago, I would draw on paper, and so that's what I'm most comfortable with as a general medium. But for digital art, I do a mix of free-handed digital stuff and also scanned inking. So what that is I will sometimes take sketches or concept work that I do on paper, and I'll scan them into the computer, and then I'll load them up into a software like this, and then I will ink them and color them and shade them using Clip Studio. For this particular exercise, what I'm planning on doing is just doing some freehand stuff. I have blank canvas here that I'm going to work on, and then depending on how the discussion goes, I want to jump over to a concept piece I was working on before, sort of illustrate some other parts of the Homeworld lifeform design. And so I guess the best place to start would be to do a rough primary and get a base going here so I can get a sort of base sketch together that I can talk about. Oh, and for the tools information, and maybe what I can do is put this into the video descriptions for the stream archives and people watching this later. The drawing tool that I'm using is a Cintiq. This is a 21 Pro, I think. It's a 21 or 22. I've had this particular tablet for a long time, over 10 years or so now, and it functions really well. To talk a little bit about tools, I'll see if I can sort of talk and draw at the same time. I'm not used to doing that, so this is going to be a little bit of an experiment. But as I sort of work on my rough primary sketch here, I can talk a little bit about tools. Like I mentioned a little while ago, I am primarily a pencil on paper artist. And as a result, I didn't really get into digital inking for a while, as I spent more time on the computer and working on projects on the digital medium side outside of straight up drawing. I did want to sort of get my feet wet in digital tools because I wanted to be able to put my stuff online. I wanted to be able to use image editing and other software like that in order to sort of switch up the way my art works. And so I had my eyes on some tools for a while when it came to the digital side. And the first thing I ended up getting before I got this particular tablet was a Wacom Intuos, I think that's what it was. I have to sort of think back since it's been such a long time. But the first digital tool I got for inking was a Wacom Intuos, which is the type of tablet that you put on your desk. I think the one I got was 8 by 12. It was fairly large. A large size tablet. And the way it works is you plug it in via USB to your computer and you draw on the tablet, and then you keep track of what the tablet's doing using whatever drawing software you've got, be it Photoshop or something like Clip Studio, something like that. And then you do all your work sort of on two planes. You have your tablet that you're working off of, and then your image on the screen. And that was my first real exposure to digital tools, and I honestly didn't like it. I think partly due to the fact that I was a pencil on paper artist primarily. I was used to being able to look down and see exactly what I was working on. The surface or workspace, canvas if you will, that I was working on was always something that I was looking directly at. So trying to look up at the computer while drawing on a surface, or look down to make sure I was on the surface itself and keep track of where the image was in the software, was really disorienting. And I tried to sort of get used to it for a greater part of a year or two, off and on, just working in the software and trying to sort of get acclimated to working on two different surfaces, and I ultimately decided that I couldn't do it. Despite having invested in the actual tablet itself, the idea that my brain was used to working primarily on the medium that I was actually drawing on from years of practice and just habit made it really difficult. So at some point after I sort of shelved the tablet, I continued to work on some other design type stuff that didn't require that type of hardware. But I decided that I would be much better served focusing on some sort of device that would let me work directly on it. And at the time, I think there were probably some competitors out there, but the main one I usually saw a lot of established artists using was the Cintiq by Wacom. The plus side was it seemed very accessible from a hardware functionality standpoint, and in doubling as a sort of monitor when you're not using it to draw was an appeal. But the fact that you could treat it like a paper on the desk and that you're drawing directly on the surface that you need to work on definitely was appealing. The downside was the Wacoms were and still are very expensive. And so having been in Earth School for a while, not having a lot of money, I decided that I would save up the money, and then at some point once I get a stable paying Earth job and can afford it, I would invest in a Cintiq for art. And it took a while. I think, if I remember correctly, I ended up getting this one probably around 2010-ish, maybe a little before, a little after. But after saving up the money and finally getting the Cintiq, I can definitely say that I don't regret that purchase at all. The device itself made it a lot easier for me to work and was a lot more comfortable. I had obviously had to learn how to set it up, learn the interface, figure out how to get it to work with the software that I used, but the overall function of the Cintiq was much better. And it allowed me to be able to work and draw, and overall it was a good purchase. Since then, as far as I can tell, I haven't talked to too many artists about this and be curious to hear what they say. It sounds like the idea of a drawing tablet like the Cintiq is not uncommon. I don't think they have a monopoly on the particular hardware industry at this point, but I'd be curious to see for other people out there that are creating art if they found a good competitor, brand, or hardware type, or something else that they used or currently use that allows them to draw. I think that would be a pretty good resource for up-and-coming artists or even established artists that are looking to sort of invest in tools. And I know, looking at what Wacom has done for their Cintiq line, I think they have a 30-something inch one now. That one's pretty expensive. I wouldn't mind getting one, but at the same time, that's a considerable purchase. And there's nothing wrong with the one I'm using now. It functions perfectly fine. Only problem is when it's not being used as a drawing tablet and it's a monitor. This particular one is smaller than the rest of the monitors that I've got, but that's really a minor issue. I don't think that would justify spending more money. Well, if we look back at our primary here, I'm just roughing in the basic details. And then once I get sort of the proportions where I want, I'm going to use the primary to start drawing in some actual details. And I guess talking a little bit about scale wouldn't be a bad idea. And I guess in order to keep this sort of structured here, especially as people come and go on the stream, I'm gonna call this base build or size. And I guess we could do sort of an approximate measurement here. Again, this is going to change. Thinking back to people on Homeworld and their average size. Average size for most Homeworlders is about 6 foot. Obviously, since I'm here on Earth in a quote-unquote human body, and I'm a literal foot shorter than the average build of people from my home planet, that's one thing I've just had to come to terms with since I've been here. And I don't even know what the average human height is. It's probably somewhere between 5'5" and 6 something. If we were to draw a person for scale. Let's see, maybe we could do this way. This is my rough approximation of a human person. Overall, the general builds of Homeworlders is pretty similar to humans. I'd say they probably range on the slightly larger size. I know some Homeworlders can be upwards of 8 feet in human measurements. In fact, I'm going to put this on another layer. You can go down here. We'll call this regular humans. And I think I'm going to move this over to the side here. I'll probably toggle the human scale off and on just for comparison purposes as it's relevant. But thinking about how I wanted to break down the concept drawing process here, I was trying to decide before we got on stream here if I wanted to do a full drawing of a just generic Homeworlder life form, or if I wanted to focus on different parts of the anatomy first and then put it all together at the end to sort of create a fully built concept. And I think it would be a good place to start with some of the defining features. I might not do it on a completely separate body part by body part breakdown. Rather, things like the heads, faces, and some distinguishing features there, and maybe limbs might not be a bad place to start. I didn't really plan on a structured sort of presentation for this. I figured I would just start drawing and explaining stuff and kind of wing it. So we'll sort of do that here. I will keep the base build on its own layer, since when I do draw out the fully realized concept for the example and the exercise here, I am going to use that. But first we'll start off with just a head. And I'll probably do this, let's see, we'll do it based on the primary here. We'll start with the base shape, and then I will put in the actual features as we sort of go here. In order to save my voice, I probably am not going to be talking constantly. When I'm going to be actually sketching in details or something that's going to take a little while, I'll probably shut up for a little bit and let the background music play. And then when I actually have something to say, I'll sort of chime back in. We'll sort of handle it that way. And what I can do is sort of explain what all of the different physical features and attributes are once I get the rough details sort of sketched in here. And then I think what I'll do, at least for the head here, probably won't do this for any other parts of the anatomy drawing that I work on aside from the final product. But I think I'll do an actual inked and colored render of this. Hey, what's going on, Edward Snowden? Can you do me a favor and give me some feedback on the audio? I don't know if you just jumped in, but if you did, I've been sort of going for a little bit, and I wanted to make sure the mic volume is clear enough and balanced against the background music. So, from what you're hearing, how's the balance sound? Is the background music really soft, or is my mic really loud? How's the sound balance going? I'm gonna probably need to write down all of the settings for the stuff that I've got for the drawing stream here. That way I don't have to bother people every time I do a new stream. But since this is a trial format. Okay, sounds good. Alright, thanks. I appreciate it. I mentioned it a little bit on Twitter, and I have a couple times now. But for streaming, the main thing I am super paranoid about is the audio quality. But to sort of explain what I'm working on here, in fact, I don't think I'll do a full render of this. I'll do a sort of rough sketch for this one, and then I can sort of talk to the different key components here, and then I'll focus on doing a fully inked and rendered and colored version for the full size concept piece here. But to sort of talk a little bit about the Homeworlder sort of not design so much as physical attributes here, I guess Homeworlders tend to look a little more reptilian. At least comparing them to something here on this planet, that's the closest thing I can think of. Usually the shape of the head is a little more triangular, sort of something like that. Length of jaws and the mouth tends to vary. And Homeworlder teeth are a little bit interesting. If I were to draw a real quick open mouth like this, I'm gonna put this on a new layer. If we were to draw a real rough mouth like this, and there's the face. Homeworlder teeth look like this. They're not triangular so much. They're almost like a half trapezoid. If we were to blow that up, shape looks like this. And obviously they have different lengths and whatnot. Don't know why the teeth evolved that way, but they did, and they function like teeth normally would. So I'll use this as my zoom in layer here. Another key feature, probably the most defining feature I would say on a Homeworlder overall, would be this thing right here. It looks like a helmet. or something that's sort of protecting the head. It's not clothing or armor. It's actually part of the skull. And this thing is called a crown. And no one really knows why Homeworlders evolved in such a way that they have this sort of crown on their head. It's just a physical defining feature that is more like a shell than armor, I would say. And I'll sort of give some examples of what that can look like. But if we look at the head here, this protective covering goes all the way around, and ears. The ears, there's one or two holes on the side of the shell, and obviously the ear canals and everything are underneath. And there's usually some sort of protrusion or lower part that extends below either side of the jaws here. This particular thing right here. And the shape of that varies from person to person. If we go to our zoom in layer here, the types of crowns on Homeworlders, like I said, it varies quite a bit. It tends to be sort of like a genetic marker almost. So let's see. I'll do it real quick. We'll mock up again. So this one here sort of goes up and out and on the sides, but I've seen some that start a little bit further back and have more of a long protrusion or even horns. That's not terribly uncommon. And maybe the sides are a little bit shorter. Ears are still over here. You might get something that looks like that. You could get something that has a bit more of a swept back look. I'm just going to draw a couple random examples here. This is the eye over here. And overall, the different variations and sort of aesthetics of the crown just literally depends on the person. I will think about how I want to do that on our concept sketch here. For getting on this particular stream, I did some brainstorming about how I wanted to sort of show that. Another key feature of the Homeworlder that also really tends to just depend on the individual would be the hair. I don't know too many Homeworlders I've seen that are completely bald. I guess they do exist. But the hair and hairstyles for Homeworlders does also run a pretty big spectrum of aesthetics. Hair all grows from the same place from the actual skull, and how people style it or cut it, just like human hair is what it is. So this is pretty much how I look. Yeah, more or less. One thing that I'm not going to be doing today on this particular stream is actually drawing what I look like in Homeworlder form. But to answer your question, Edward Snowden, yeah, I look something like this. One thing I really would like to do, and it's not really some sort of secret I'm keeping from anybody, but I've been kind of doing some research, and I really would like to get a Vtuber rig and model for quote-unquote homeworld form. The problem is, everything that I've researched so far tells me that The most common type of VTuber model obviously is a person, quote unquote humanoid or close to human type features for model and rigging. I've not seen a lot of non-human VTuber models. I know they exist, and probably the most noteworthy quote unquote non-human type that I've seen would be from the independent VTuber Juniper Actius. And I'm a big fan of Juniper's. I do like her content. She's a crazy good artist, but she's also a modeler and rigger. She works in live 2D, and her particular VTuber form, she's the moth lady VTuber. She has a monster form for her avatar that she uses every once in a while, and the rigging for that one looks pretty complicated. It's this big like caterpillar moth creature. It looks really impressive, but so far I haven't really found an example of someone using something that looks like this. And I've been thinking about how to potentially approach that. If I can get in touch with someone out there in the rigging community to ask them if they were to try and rig a model, how they would need the images and actual model work to look in order for it to behave and move like a regular one. So at some point, maybe, I don't know if I'll do it on video or if I'll just post it online on somewhere like Twitter. I do want to post a character sheet for me in Homeworld form. I just haven't figured out how I want to do that yet. But like I said, to answer your question, yeah, this is what my people look like. Let's see. Back to the hair, like I mentioned before, the hairstyles and the way that looks literally varies from person to person. I've seen some folks that have sort of medium length hair like this. Some might have hair that goes all the way down here like this. Some might have more of the anime spiky hair, where it's a little bit more pokey and jagged, like that. Just like human hair, it's largely an aesthetic choice. Moving on, some other noteworthy features for Homeworlders. They tend to have long necks. Long, narrow, tapering necks like this. I would say at least 25% longer than humans tend to have. Other than that, for the head and sort of head into the neck, that's probably the most relevant stuff I can think of. Let's see, I'm trying to think if I want to talk too much about the rest of the body and limbs, or if I want to just go into an actual drawing. That'll probably be more interesting for people to watch. What we'll do is we'll keep this here. I'll just call this head. I'll leave that off to the side. I'm going to actually start drawing in a fully realized concept piece here. I need to get better at labeling my layers here. I've never taken a Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint class. All the stuff that I do has been self-taught. I'd be curious to see if the quote-unquote professionals out there that do this stuff have some sort of organized way they keep all their layers together. Normally, if I'm working on a really complicated image, I'll put everything into folders. But for this one, I'm not too worried about it. what I will do is start working on the primary for the actual Homeworlder example here. And I'll sort of think about key defining features that I want to put on the example. We'll sort of just play it by ear and see what materializes. One thing of note from a sort of biology standpoint, I thought about what features in Homeworlders is really indicative for genders, for male versus female Homeworlders, and I couldn't really think of any that set them apart as far as physical features. As far as size and build, just like humans, it does just literally vary from person to person. There's no real common trend of Homeworlder males being larger than females, or vice versa. It just tends to vary, and things like I should probably put this closer. Things like the key defining features, your crowns and whatnot, those are also person to person. From what I've seen, you can find any permutation of features there. Kind of like the idea of our sample model here having horns. So I'm gonna do horns. And for hair, let's see, what would be a good hairstyle? I guess we can keep it simple, but we'll go a little bit more spiky. Something like that, and if I feel like changing it, I'll change it later. Just realized as we sort of work our way from the head to the torso and then to the rest of the body that I will be drawing these Homeworlders without clothes. And I hope YouTube doesn't mind that. If anything, hopefully they're ignorant enough that they won't realize that. They'll just think I'm drawing random creatures. I think Homeworld clothing and armor study, that's probably something for a different video. but I have done a decent amount of concept work for clothing. So that could be something to tackle in a future stream. Since I did not realize that it has already been almost an hour since I started. As we work our way down to the torso, another key physical feature that's present on all Homeworlders are their chest plates. These run down the length of the torso, in fact, all the way down the length of the torso, and function a little bit like armor for all of the torso organs. And what I'll do is I'll kind of rough in my torso dimensions here so I can see what I'm working with. Using the primary underneath. And if I feel like changing it, I'll do just like everything else. But the patterning on the chest plates here also varies from person to person. They're not shaped in any specific way. For example, some might be more, I guess it'd be like V-shaped, like this. Just to give a quick example, some might be more like this, sort of up, I guess A-shaped almost, you consider that. And just like any other physical attribute, it really does vary person to person. I'll keep them the way they are here on this particular one. And since I'm sure somebody somewhere, maybe not on this stream with our cultured audience, but I'm sure someone somewhere is going to ask if there's any distinction on female Homeworlders, and I will say right now that Homeworlders do not have mammary glands. The things that Earthlings seem to be very fixated on, no matter who you are or what you're into, that always seems to be a topic that comes up. So if I'm ever lucky enough to have Rule 34 artists that follow my work, they should know that canonically, Homeworlders, male and or female, do not have mammary glands. I guess if there's one takeaway that anybody takes away from this particular stream, it would probably be that. Granted, as well as I know the internet, they will adapt things however they choose, no matter if it's canonically accurate or not. Well, it does remind me, obviously I'm not a well-known Vtuber, I haven't been doing this for very long. Well, yeah, Edward Snowden, that's definitely one school of thought. I guess I would have to ask someone on the internet who is from the interest group that's not focusing on humans. I don't know any furries myself, but chances are if people want to loot something, no matter what it is, they're gonna loot it. I'm not gonna sit here and say don't ever loot anything that I create, because if I said that, people would be more likely to do it. I honestly don't care. But what I was thinking, and I haven't really given it much thought, but at some point I'll need to come up with an art tag to use for me. I'll need to come up with an art tag and a fan group name. Figured that was something people did once they got super popular or developed a big audience. But in watching Vtuber debuts recently, I noticed that that's one thing people tend to establish from the beginning. And that's not something I really thought about when I was putting the debut content together. I will have to give that some thought, and maybe I will put something up on Twitter. Okay. Taking a look at our model here, again, I'm probably working a little bit slower than I'm used to because I'm actually doing some narration here. But if we look at the arms, a couple key features on the arms for Homeworlders. In general, I'm not going to say universally, but in general, Homeworlders have long arms. Arms that reach pretty far down compared to the proportions on a human. And this is probably close to human proportions-ish, probably a little on the longer side. But it's not unusual for Homeworlders to have arms that maybe reach down like another foot or so down here towards closer to the knee. It just depends on the person. But for all intents and purposes here, we're going to keep the proportions here. And these things, which are pretty common on different parts of the body, just sort of depending person to person, these don't have any special name, these are just minerals. And these develop sort of the same way that hair develops. I guess same thing here. And here. No one really knows why some people have these and some don't. It's maybe it served some sort of function a long time ago in the evolutionary phase. Nowadays, it functions more like aesthetics, if nothing else. Moving down to the hands, Homeworlders have 4 fingers and a thumb, similar to humans. And then nails on their fingers. One key defining feature, and I gotta figure out how I'm gonna show this on concept work in the future, but as a sort of natural defensive mechanism, again, probably stemming from evolution, Homeworlders can actually extend out their digits. So if we were to, I'll put this on a new layer too. If we were to go into a zoom in layer here, and let's see, I'll just kind of put the wrist here. Homeworlders can extend out their digits into longer claws, like so. And there have been a lot of studies on how that particularly works. Primarily, it's the end of the digit part that connects to the nail. So if you look at this part right here, the quote-unquote fingernails would be in this section. The part that extends out is that nail. Like so. And the material on the nails is similar to the minerals that are found on different parts of the body, like that. So the nails themselves are incredibly hard and can be used to cut through things. If I were to develop a Vtuber model for the Homeworlder type, I think it'd be cool to have an expression or animation on the model that had the claws extended like this. I'll put that over here for now. We will go ahead and keep working our way down. I will think of how I want to do the legs, but for anatomy purposes here, one thing that's noteworthy for Homeworlders that does tend to vary a little bit from person to person, but some individuals have reverse jointed legs. Something you might see in birds here on this particular planet. This particular model that we're doing here, I will do with the reverse jointed legs. Let's sort of even out the proportions as we go here. Again, this is another one of the things that scientists don't really know why it's different. It's just sort of a genetic variation amongst different individuals. But if we were to go to our sample layer here, I don't want to put that there. If we were to look at a basic leg, like this, this is pretty much what I've drawn here on our model. You have things that look like that. You might also have a leg that is forward jointed. Is that what that's called? Something similar like you would see in humans. My really primitive leg drawing there. Call this main. For the lower legs, just like the upper legs, you see a lot of variation as far as the shape. Sometimes you would see something like mineral deposits on the sides. That's not uncommon. Another feature which is possible on Homeworlders would be spurs. And spurs can show up anywhere, in fact. If we were to take a look at our sample model here, you could have spurs up here on the shoulders or arms. I've seen them on the necks too. That's a little bit less common. Same with the tails. But we'll keep our model here with spurs on the calves. And last for the main limbs, we have the feet. Homeworlders have 4 toes. And they're a bit unusual in shape compared to the rest of the features. And I may need to mess around with the orientation here. No one really knows why there's a difference in number of digits here. Do they make jingle noises like Earth's spurs? If we're talking about these ones right here, no, they don't make any noise, but they are sharp. If you happen to be lucky enough to have spurs on a place where they can be used as a weapon, then definitely they would not feel great if they were on an arm or a leg and you were to be hit by them. Speaking of Earth spurs, I've never really understood the appeal behind spurs. I didn't mention it in the debut, but prior to moving up the West Coast where I live now, I lived in Texas for some time. And I can definitely say I never really got the aesthetic for the metal cowboy spurs. And to each their own. If someone likes that, I'm not gonna judge them. I just personally don't see the appeal. I guess it's more of a function if you're a horse rider. But given that it's something homeworlders can be just born with, it's not really a matter of aesthetics so much as part of your body. I guess if you really wanted to, you could shave them off, but I'm pretty sure they'll grow back. As an aside, I'm pretty sure my time in Texas is why I'm not a fan of country music. It was pretty much inescapable from my time living there. I see. Well, that makes sense, Edward. My understanding is that the point of spurs on like cowboy boots was to spur the horse into going faster. Obviously, that sucks for the horse to have someone kicking you in the side with spiky metal things on their shoes. But at some point, they became also an aesthetic choice in addition to just a function choice. But that's fine. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at our concept sketch here. We'll go ahead and add in the other arm on this side. Just make sure the details here are consistent with the other side. Again, this is a primary sketch. What I'm going to do after this is actually go over and ink it, do the line work, and then colors. The last thing on the sort of anatomy explanation here would be tails. Homeworlders do have tails. At some point they were probably an evolutionary trait for survival, but now they serve as an extra appendage. I will say one thing I miss in having an earth form is not having a tail. They're very handy for helping carry things. You do stuff like open doors or hold on to something, and you can't do that if you don't have a tail. And the shape and style just, again, depends on the person. Some people have sort of segmented tails. Some people have something like fewer segments or sort of a shelled plating. Just depends. And some people do have spikes. But we will not do that on a particular model here. Alright, let's get rid of the additional stuff here. And just take a look at our main primary. I'm just doing some cleanup of the sketch here, and then I'm gonna go move on to inking. Alright, that should do it. Now we'll start going through and actually giving us some line work. I see, Edward. Well, I guess it's natural to be somewhat scared of something that's alien or foreign. I'm sure people would feel the same way about humans, meeting them for the first time. Let's see. Go on. That should do it for pen size. We'll go 5. going through the line work phase here will also give me an opportunity to clean up some of the details from the primary as well, or if I want to change something, then I can do that here. Maybe I'm gonna up the transparency here, make it easier to follow. One thing I didn't really talk much about at all in the debut stream when I'm talking about art and drawing is what kind of drawing stuff I primarily do. I did mention concept work compared to some of the other artists out there that have a bit more of a defined style. I would say that my primary focus for a long time, probably up until maybe 10 or so years ago, was creature and monster design. I have a project that I've worked on a lot in the past that I'm going to be doing on stream at some point. I won't spoil it here yet. But in general, my area of focus was always creature and monster design. It wasn't until a bit later that I started trying to learn how to draw people. And probably the most challenging thing to learn, which I wouldn't consider myself super proficient at yet, would be the manga or anime style of drawing. You can probably tell from my avatar and from the stuff that I've posted from things like the stream schedule and everything else. I did learn how to draw a little bit in the quote-unquote anime or chibi style. But I still feel like I could improve a lot there. I have another project that I've been working on for a while that's a different set of concept work altogether for something connected to a writing project that I'm also working on. And I'll probably be working on that on stream at some point too, but that's going to require a bit of explanation and talking through. So we'll see. I've got a whole bunch of things that I want to do from the art side on stream. And we'll just have to see how that develops. But I follow quite a few Vtubers that are art focused, and their work never ceases to impress me. One of my favorite of the big name VTubers from Hololive would be Ninomaya Ina. Her artwork is insane, and her sort of chill personality and penchant for puns is also something I can relate to. I definitely like keeping tabs on Ina's work. Another VTuber. This app that I'm drawing with, or this software, Edward, is Clip Studio Paint Pro. I mentioned it earlier on in the stream, but what I'll do for the archive footage that I'm going to edit and put up, assuming there's no issues with it, I'll put notes in the description that talk about what I use for my art. But yeah, this is Clip Studio Paint Pro. It used to be called Manga Studio. In fact, that's what it was called when I first bought it a long time ago. I also use Photoshop, but I primarily do that for editing drawings and putting together things like design templates. I like the interface for Clip Studio when it comes to doing stuff like this better, which is why I use it. It also tends to be less system intensive than Photoshop. Going back to the topic of art-related VTubers, another one from, I guess I don't know if they're considered a major group or still indie, but from VShoujo, Bittersweet Apricot or Fruit. Fruit is a fantastic artist, and I wish I discovered her work earlier. I didn't even realize she'd been creating art until she became a VTuber and joined VShoujo. But Fruit's work is phenomenal. Her costume design is just insane. I know when she debuted a while back, earlier this year, she'd mentioned that she wanted to get into costume design work for VTubers as a whole. And if she ever opens up a service or a business for costume commissions for VTuber models, I will be on that day one. Being able to get an outfit or a model design by her would be fantastic. Another one that I do follow that I mentioned earlier is Juniper Actius. The fact that she does all of the VTuber stuff herself in addition to her regular drawing is impressive. But I've tuned into her streams a couple times and I've seen the artwork that she posts. It's pretty good. She also focuses on a lot of monster type designs I've seen. It's definitely something I could vibe with. Oh, another VTuber that's also known for art that I completely forgot to mention would be Calliope Mori, who is my favorite VTuber. Well, probably not what she's immediately known for. She's also a really talented artist. I've sat in on some of her streams, and they're very chill, and her style is also really impressive. Remembering back to when I first got drawn into the VTuber rabbit hole, I was introduced to Callie through her music. That's probably what she's the most known for. But it's been kind of neat seeing her incorporate her drawing and her art into the content she creates as well, because she's a good artist. I think it's been said by other people, but the HoloLive company definitely screens the people and their talent well for a lot of really diverse skill sets. They've got some really talented people working for them. talking about VTubers is probably something I need to devote a chill stream to. Post-debut and coming up with ideas for content and things I want to focus on for the sake of streams. Since I didn't really talk about it on the debut pretty much at all, I think it'd be cool to talk about other VTubers I'm into, or that I got into since falling down the rabbit hole. And I think it'd be an interesting discussion with folks that are tuning in to see who other people are into as well. Sort of a knowledge exchange when it comes to VTubers. So I'll think about that. The main point of the chill streams be to just talk to you guys. Like I mentioned before, I've got lots of funny stories about random stuff that's happened to me since I've been here on this planet. But I think that would be a good focus too. So I'll make a mental note. Maybe we do a chill stream talk about VTubers, because VTubers talking about VTubers isn't meta at all. Let me see if I can switch up our playlist here. We're going through a whole bunch of stuff from Game Chops. Really good, mellow, chill stuff. I wonder if they have... Oh, Synthwave. Yeah, I'm gonna put on some Synthwave. Ah, I see. Romeru Sato. I haven't heard of him. Is he independent, Edward, or is he from one of the bigger groups? Oh, indie. Okay. I'll have to look him up. It's been pretty fascinating over the last year, coming out of 2020 into 21, seeing the sort of boom and rise of VTubers on YouTube when it comes to content creation. Not just on YouTube, Twitch as well. But seeing this sort of blow up has been very interesting. I do think that at some point the bubble's gonna burst, but the idea that content creators can grow a community based on the stuff they do isn't necessarily a trend. That's always been a thing. And I think even once we get out of the pandemic, people are still going to create content, and VTubers will probably just continue to exist alongside other types of content creators like IRL YouTubers and streamers and whatnot. Instead of being sort of a fad, I think it's just going to become another common type of content. But yeah, I do try and take a look at indie VTubers as well. All of the VShoujo VTubers were independent before that group was formed. And I know another fairly popular VTuber that I know of but didn't really follow too closely was Vebe, and she joined VShoujo recently. They're definitely putting together a colorful cast of characters in that particular group. But like I mentioned before, the majority of, well, actually, I wouldn't say the majority. A good portion of VTubers that I was following initially were from Hololive, but not all of them. I probably need to put together a sort of how I got into VTubers origin story thing for a chill stream. There's so many. I think the first legit VTuber, and I'll probably talk about this again in the future. The first one that I ever saw and watched for a little while was Amano Pikami. She was, I think, are they still indie? She's part of, or is it VOMs? She might have been indie when she started. But I remember seeing her, I don't even know how I found her. I think it was just a random YouTube recommendation. And I was watching her play Dark Souls. I thought, having heard about VTubers for a while, it was definitely interesting. And then from there, I think once YouTube sees that you've watched a type of content, the algorithm tends to kind of go ham when recommending similar types of content. So my feed started blowing up with, hey, you should check out these other VTubers. And I remember just sort of getting pulled into the rabbit hole. I discovered Nyaners at some point before VShojo, obviously. And compared to some of the other larger groups that were a bit more, I'll say, composed in their content, being exposed to Nyaners for the first time was a trip. And she became one of my favorites. Yeah, that's right. For Pikami, her signature laugh, it sounds like a kettle. You know, I remember what it was. This is probably something I need to talk about on the origin story discussion. The first thing I ever saw from Pikami was the Let's Kill the Hoe video with, I think her friend's name was Tomoshika. The Let's Kill the Hoe videos was recommended to me randomly. I remember watching that, and it was hilarious because she speaks English, and her friend who didn't speak English didn't know what she was saying. It was hilarious, and I remember thinking there's a lot of potential for entertainment with these content creators. And from there I started falling down the rabbit hole, as it were, and probably discovered Nyaners around the same time, and realizing that some of the more indie ones can pretty much say and do what they want was pretty amusing. But yeah, I do like all of the Hololive EN talent. Like I mentioned before, Callie's my favorite VTuber, period. But all the people in that group are pretty amusing to watch. Kiara, Ina, Gura, Amelia. I did hear, it was from the ambassador to the VTuber community, Coefficient. He did a video on Niji Sanji's EN group that debuted somewhat recently. And I hadn't really been following Niji Sanji, and they're kind of like the other major group out there with Hololive. I need to check out their stuff at some point too. There's so much out there. You can pretty much devote all your free time to learning about VTubers if you really wanted. Haruka Itsumi, another artist VTuber. I haven't heard of her. I'm assuming it's a her based on the name. Is she also indie? Oh, okay. Haruka Itsumi is a male VTuber. I will have to check out the folks that you've mentioned here, Edward. Always good to hear about other folks out in the community. Although he was trapped in a trap form for a short while. Interesting. One thing I've been trying to do some research on and look into, and haven't really found a ton so far, would be if any, what other beatboxing VTubers are out there. I found a couple. I know there's one guy, I think his name is Kuchisaki Beat. He's a Japanese indie VTuber, and he's a beatboxer. Thought about reaching out and getting in touch with him, but I don't know how much English he speaks, and my Japanese sucks. But I get the feeling there's not a ton of beatboxing VTubers out there, or if so, I've never heard of them. I try and every once in a while just check around on YouTube. I should probably check on Twitch too, just to see if any are out there. Alright, let's see how our line work's doing here. I think we're good on the basic outline. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up the line work before I start doing colors here. Yeah, Edward, the VTuber I was thinking of, I think his name is Kuchisaki Beat or Kuchisaki Beato. When you look up beatboxing YouTubers, I think he's the only one that really comes up consistently in searches. Alright, let's see how we're doing here. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it looks like Kuchisaki Beat has been making content for at least a year. I think a year or two, maybe? I just remember when I searched on YouTube for Beatbox VTuber, he was the one that came up. I should go and look and see if anyone else has debuted recently. Alright, looks like we're just about done with line art cleanup here. If I see anything else that I want to fix as we go, then I can do that. But we can go ahead and move on to color assignment now. Let's see. might be a good color for our test subject here. Could go for a mix of greens. So I'll create sort of a test palette on an extra layer here. Could do sort of a dark green. It's a darker shade. And more of a gray silver for the crown. Could be something like that. And maybe sort of a yellowish orange for the minerals. A darker highlight. I'm just messing around with the hue and saturation to see what I think of the color blend here. Normally I don't do straight up palette layers like this. This is something I'm experimenting with for this particular drawing. Yeah, that could work. We'll go with a sort of green for skin tone. I'm basically going through the different major sections and doing a color fill, and then I'll probably need to go back and fix some of the sections that aren't filled completely. I know there's multiple schools of thought on how to do color assignment. This particular method has worked for me in the past, so it's how I tend to do my color assignment when working on stuff like this. Oh, I need to come up with the color for the hair. We'll get there eventually. I think I want to go slightly different shade for this kind of underbelly. In fact, I'll do the same thing for the armor plating, the chest plating. I'll just form fill this here as a placeholder color. We've got a mix of darker greens on the body, lighter greens on the plating. For crown, we'll use this sort of gray silver color. I think I'll use the same color for the joints. And here. What I've done on previous concept designs that I've worked on is I've used the same color here. Same thing with the fingers and nails. Alright. Should probably work from top to bottom and not jump around. What to do for the hair? Could do sort of mix of blue-green, a little bit darker shade for the hair. See how that looks. Yeah, that's not bad. As I work through the color assignment, I'll normally experiment with different combinations of colors and paletting, and if I need to adjust things to fit better, then I will. I'm not married to any of the color assignment we've got so far. As long as nothing looks like it clashes too much. We'll go with orange color for the eye. Alright, now we need to do plating. Let's see, could probably do this in a larger group here. Having to reach over because my keyboard is in a different section of my desk because I have my tablet collapsed down so I can draw on it here. And we'll do the same for legs. And we'll do the tail too while we're here. Alright, do the inner joints, same color with this sort of silver gray. Are there any non-green Homeworlders? I will say this, that's a good question, Edward. So, when it comes to Homeworlders and their skin color, there isn't really a normal color pattern. In other words, they're not typically green or any color. It does vary from person to person. Usually it's a mix of colors, but also there's a difference in color patterning too on some. Overall, it's pretty diverse. Just like humans come in all sorts of different colors. Same thing goes for Homeworlders. Common shades, I would say, would be greens, blues, reds, and oranges. But again, it's not really restricted to any combination of colors. I've seen a lot of diverse folks out there, and we'll see that in the concept stuff that I end up doing for purposes here. I may not have time to go over the other concept piece that I was working on for the Homeworlders, but we'll see. We've already passed the 2-hour mark, which was longer than I expected this to take. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the color assignment, and then I will go in and do the cleanup on the filled sections, get rid of all of the missing parts, and then we'll move on to shading. Okay, that should do it. Now it's just gonna be a matter of cleanup. All right. that'll do it for our base color palette. What I'm going to do is take a look on the hue and saturation sliders and see if there's anything I want to adjust before we go into shading. Sort of more green and yellow palette's not bad. The purple mineral highlights. I think what I'll do, I'm gonna do some alt palettes for this one. We'll leave the base the way it is. And then I'll do some alternate ones. Alright, now we can move on to shading. Home stretch. This will be the last part of the concept sketch here. The way I normally do shading for drawings like this is I will use the clipping mask tool, which is very handy for stuff like this. Something that both Photoshop and Clip Studio do. Let's put my shading layer below what I'm working on. And the way that works, just for quick demonstration purposes here, if I turn off the clipping layer, and let's say we have our base color layer here, I have the shading turned off. I'm working one layer above on the shading layer. If I were to color on it without the clipping mask on, it would look something like this, and you know, if I'm going outside the lines, it would obviously color outside the lines. Clipping mask restricts the layer to only color on the layer directly below it. So if I turn it on, it is only going to put color on the stuff directly below it. In other words, the base color layer. So again, clipping off, all the stuff outside the lines, clipping on, restricted. Very handy for doing shading and layer work like this. Both Clip Studio and Photoshop do that, and it's a really handy feature to use when doing things like shading. Probably work out a more zoomed out level here. The way I normally do shading is I'll go through and do shadows in different sections, and then I'll go back and I'll erase out parts of it to clean up the edges. So this is a real rough shading pattern here, just to get everything on the image, and then I'll go back and I'll clean it up. Do all of the rough shading first, and then once it's all done, I'll go back and make adjustments, and we will be done with our Homeworlder here. And depending on where I decide the light source is, that sort of informs how I do the shadows. It'll be more of a trial and error thing as we go here. Shading is probably what I consider to be one of the weaker things that I do when it comes to drawing. I'm always trying to learn more on how to improve my shading work. And as I work through the different sections for shading, if I see any other stray spots that have missing color, I'll just clean it up along the way. As we're going here, I can see that the soundtrack is now playing. This must be some sort of collab album featuring Smooth McGroove, who's the YouTuber I've been following for a while. That guy does crazy acapella covers of video game music. Really talented dude. Alright. Just need to get base shading on the legs. And we'll go in and do the inner joints, then the mineral highlights, and then that'll be it. Shouldn't take me long to do the shading cleanup. I'm just going to go in and do that all at once all of the shading colors are laid down here. I knew there was going to be a cover of this song. The Wii Shop music. I thought about making that my stream loading screen background music. I figure that's asking for trouble from the copyright bots. Alright, I think that'll do it for the main skin color. So we can do the plating. Looks like it's just the neck and chest plates for this color. I guess while I'm doing the shading here, since I don't really have a whole lot to say on the drawing at the moment, I can talk a little bit about what I've got planned for the remainder of the week. I had posted yesterday, day before yesterday. Over the weekend I had posted the stream schedule, and looking into the YouTube options, it looks like I don't qualify for a community page. I'm assuming the reason for that is because I don't have enough subscribers. That's what I assume drives that, which is fine. It's not really surprising. But I wanted to post the stream schedule there for everyone who's subscribed to the channel. But because I can't do that, all I can post are messages directing people to Twitter, where I have the stream schedule posted there each week. Which is, again, that's not a big deal. I mostly want people to know that they can find that information in a bunch of different places if they want to know when I'm going to be going live. But this week is a trial week for content types. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a test of the drawing stream format, and so far I think it works fine. Pretty manageable. Thursday, I believe it's Thursday. Where's my announcement? Yeah. The next stream this week is going to be Thursday the 27th at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And that's going to be the first gaming stream that I'll attempt to do here. And I thought about what I wanted to do, if I wanted to start up the long form Let's Play game or sort of try out the format and just see. And I decided before I jump into the long form Let's Play, I'm going to do something different. And so on Thursday, assuming there's no issues with me getting it set up on the stream, I'll be playing through Friday Night Funkin'. And I've played through Friday Night Funkin' before. It's not my first time playing the game, but it'll be my first time playing that on stream. So that'll be fun. I'm attempting to play through the whole thing on hard. And depending on how long that takes, we'll see. I also have access to the remix stuff and all the different mods. But that should be fun. I just got a new keyboard, so I'm eager to break it in. What better way to do it than with a frantic rhythm game? I just hope the keys aren't too loud. Guess we'll find out. That'll be Thursday. And then on the weekend, the first official Beatbox Jam stream will be on Saturday, the 29th. That'll be at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. I put it on the stream announcement card, but I'll reiterate for whenever I talk about it here, just so people know that the times always be in Pacific. And what I plan to do on the jam stream on Saturday is spend some time going through drills. I mentioned it on the debut, but for beatboxing basics and technique stuff, the importance of going over drills for technique consistency and practice is pretty key when it comes to getting better. So I will be going over drills and then doing practice stuff probably for the first portion of the stream. And then towards the later part, what I'd like to do is get a brainstorming session together for potential new background music tracks. Got some ideas. I'd be curious to bounce some off of folks in the chat. But we will start the process for coming up with some ideas on creating new tracks for the stream background music, which will be fun. And that'll be a good chance to make sure I've got everything sort of ironed out when it comes to the formatting and structure of the jam streams. Looking back at the footage from the debut, I think it was fine. Seemed like it worked out. So I'm going to be mostly doing the same thing for the next one. And between that and the next week's worth of content, I'll have to figure out what I want to do. I guess I'll have to decide if I want to spend more time in the following week with Friday Night Funkin', or if I want to do something different. We'll just have to see. Alright. Need to do the highlights on the crown. Then the hair, then I'll go back and start doing my cleanup, and then we will be done. I think I want to go slightly darker shade for the hair. I think I'm not going to put a white highlight on this particular one. We'll keep it a bit more dull. We'll do the highlighting on the eye. And the tooth. Now, go back and just clean up the shadows. And we will take a look at our final product here. I like using a hard-edged eraser to give the shadows a bit more of a firm or sharp look to them. What I'm doing here is I'm just working my way down through the sections that I added shadows to, and I'm either adding or removing parts to sort of even it out. I thought I recognized this song. This song is from Toho. This song has also been memed quite heavily. Now that's something that I'll have to think about doing. I've never played a Toho game. Well, I've played a couple a long time ago, but not recently. Maybe if I decide to do a suffer stream where I play something really hard and punishing, I'll do something like maybe make a community poll or something, or a straw poll, and ask you guys that are tuning in what you want me to suffer through. And maybe I can put a bullet hell shooter on there. Alright, we are almost done with the lower torso here. Need to make sure I clean up the shading on the plates in the lower body. Oh, we got some good drum and bass going. Isaac's battle theme. I wonder if that's from Golden Sun. Alright, let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at the shading and do some final cleanup. Then I think we will be done with our Homeworlder. Alright, I'm going to zoom almost all the way out here and we will take a look at our finished product here. I think I don't need this scale anymore. Alright. I think the color palette works. What I'll do is... Let's see. I did say I wanted to do some alts. So let's do this. Call this number 2. Move number 1 over. All right. This is how we'll do our alt palettes here. Can up the saturation a little bit, make the colors stronger. I know this was one that I liked from when we were messing around with it previously. And let's see, for the third one, let me see if I can get some reds. That'd be a good contrast to these other ones. Can also use color balance, which I realize the pop-up windows in Clip Studio aren't showing up here. So you guys can't actually see what I'm doing right now when I'm sliding stuff. That's okay. What I did was I upped the red, and now I'm going to mess around with the hue and saturation. Let's see if we can find another good alt palette here. Actually, that's not red, but the mix of blues and purples isn't bad. Problem is the shading on the minerals is lost a little bit. Huh. That's not a bad alt color. That's actually pretty close to my color. Kind of curious what other alt palettes we can do. I'm gonna do another 3 just to play around with this, and then we'll wrap up for the stream today. We'll do 3 and 3. Purple. Mix of purples isn't bad. Do that. For this one, I'm going to adjust the color balance a little bit. We're going to give this one more starting blue look and then mess around with the hue and saturation on this one too. Oh, there's our red. Okay. And we'll do a mix on this last one. What if we went more yellow? Oops. Going for a yellow-green mix of colors here. Well, this yellow one stands out a bit from the previous three. A bit more yellow than green. Alright, well, I think that'll do it for our Homeworlder study for today's stream. I had wanted to go through a different concept drawing that I was working on, but seeing as how we're hitting the 3-hour mark now, I think I will call it good here. And then next time we do a drawing stream, I will think about what I want to focus on. I kind of want to go through that other Homeworlder concept drawing just to show some variations in design, but I'll give some thought into what I want to do on the next one. I don't know if there's going to be a drawing stream next week. I might do a chill chatting stream in addition to the gaming and jam streams. I haven't quite decided how I want to mix the content for next week, but we will see. In the meantime, just like before, I want to thank the folks that stopped by and hung out on the stream today. If you're still out there, Edward, thanks for asking all the questions and giving me feedback and adding to the discussion. Always appreciated. I think it's weird that it doesn't show me the participant list, but it shows me that there's people watching. I'm not exactly sure why it does that, but that's alright. But I think that'll do it. Until next time, I will catch you guys later and have a good evening.